Hi guys, it's Pixels Tech here, and I'm back with episode 4 of Widgy Widget Basics. And today we're going to be focusing on the text asset. There are many different variations of text assets, and we're going to go through those today. So we're going to go up to the top and we're going to press the add layer. So I'm going to add multiple layers here, and these are all going to be text layers. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm just going to explain. You can move and reposition and resize all of these layers using the frame panel. And if you do want more details on that, feel free to go and watch episode 3 of Widgy Widget Basics. And now we have our text layers. What I'm going to do is go straight into the fonts. So to get to fonts, we're going to go to the layer we want, and we're going to select the text edit section from the menu at the top, and we're going to set the font and press edit. Now Widgy has a great deal of fonts, and Widgy 2.2, which has just been released, has a much larger library to choose from. So with your fonts, it's just a case of finding the one you want. If it has a menu within that font, it means that there are bold, italic, thin, and other variations of that particular font. So choose your favorite fonts. I'm going to just select a variation of a few. Something I forgot to mention in the 2.2 video is that there are some new additions with multicolor fonts, and they're really cool. So if you fancy using them, feel free. Next, in our text menu, we have Unicode remapping, and that is just a variation of different mapped fonts. But if you do choose a font, you will find that the font reverts back to the system font, so you can't do both. And I'm just going to quickly create here a custom text just to make this video a bit better. So moving on to the next in the text menu, we're now going to look at text case. That's just uppercase, lowercase, sentence case, title case, and the original. So you can choose between that if you want to change your text case. Now moving on, we're going to go to line mode, and that's either auto line, which gives you the automatic line of the box or the text box that you've created. You can have clipped lines, which basically mean that the text will run out after those amount of lines and it will just display ... Or you can have the scale lines, which will fit that text to the amount of lines that you desire. So next we're going to have our alignment, and that's basically the alignment of the text in question. So it's either center, right, or left. That will be horizontal or vertical, however you want to display your text within your text box. And again, if you want to adjust your text box, that would be back to frames with size and the position arrows. Next in the text menu, we have our kerning. Now kerning is the space between the letters within the word. You then have strike through or underline, and that's just an on or off toggle, as you can see on the screen. You've then got these at the end of the menu, which I'm going to go through when we've actually got units to display. Now, next in the top bar, we have our text color, and there are hundreds of different colors within Widgy. So select the one you want. I always like to add it to my own custom colors, and then I can make the adjustments that I want to make if I want to change multiple text layers. Next, in our top menu, we have our background color. And again, this will change the color of the background. I usually leave this on transparent. If I want a background color, I'll add a shape behind it. But this does give you the flexibility to allow you to create a color of your background for your text. And then we've got our effects tab. Now, all these effects are the same, whatever you're using, but you have your object alpha, and that is basically the opacity. That's just up and down. You have your edge rounding, and depending on the size of your widget will depend on the size you need for edge rounding. I usually like between 20 and 40. Then you've got your blend mode. I'm just going to show you mirror mode first, and you can see it just flips and gives you the option to have a mirror effect on your text. I'm just going to quickly put a background in so you can see the blend modes. Now, using the blend mode, you can see this is, if you're used to something like Photoshop or anything like that, you'll know a lot about blend modes, but this is just a way to get your text or object to blend nicely with the background. You've then got your blink mode, which will then allow your object to blink in your widget. You've got your stretching, yes or no, and your clip to frame, yes or no. But I've skipped over these because I think they're better to use for images. So when I get around to my images, we can go through them then. Then you've got your outline settings, so you can change the color of your outline. the width and the dash of your outline. These will go on the outline of the text box, not the text itself. Then we have the shadow effects. So you can choose your shadow color, the shadow size, and the offset. I do like adding a shadow to my design. I think it looks really stand out, especially with the new emboss feature, which we'll discuss in a second. So yeah, just play around with your shadows. They do look really cool on widgets. Next, you have your blur. Now, I like using blur with a couple of layers, so you can have kind of like a neon effect at times. So blur is a good feature. You then have your insert parameters in width and height, and this gives the text box some padding. And I found that if you have daily changes, using automations with the insert really helps because it forces the text to stay within boundaries. And then moving on to the newest effect within Widgy, which is emboss, which I really love at the minute. You've got your emboss on or off. You can change the color of your emboss shadows, and then you can change the amount. I think it looks fantastic with some of the text that I've played around with, and I'm really excited to use this a lot more in some of my newest widgets. So that's some of the brilliant things you can do with text. Now let's move on to have a look at what we can add as text options. So to do that, you go over to the little box. You then press the text layer and you can use all of these options. First, we're going to just show you custom text. That's just basically what do you want to write in this box, or what do you want it to present. So that's a simple, just type or copy and paste some information you want to put in that box. Next, you've got your accessibility on or offs, and what I'm going to do is just show you where to get this information. So we're going to go back to the menu and we're going to click on the messages option. And then you're going to find the option that you want to change the title for. So on this is accessibility. So I'm going to find the edit and I'm going to type in accessibility off. And then anything in terms of accessibility will now show the term accessibility off. Now on to one of the the best features I think in Widgy, which is the calendar integration, or the agenda integration, which is reminders and calendars. This is your iOS calendars themselves. And having the vast amount of information that Widgy can provide on widgets is absolutely excellent. I usually use agenda in chronological order, but you can have agenda from today and agenda from tomorrow. If you watch episode 1 of this series, you'll see an option of how to change the agenda permissions, and that will just allow you to choose the calendar and agenda that you want to present. So there's a lot of options with calendar. The best thing to do, I think, is have multiple text layers within a text box, or have multiple text layers themselves, individual ones, and use the different layers like title, location, start time, and other calendar inputs. Next, we have our API list. I think this is fantastic. Widgy has some really good built-in services. Now, an API is basically receiving data from an internet source. So whether that's a joke or a statement or something along those lines in terms of text, then Widgy already has those programmed in. So you just have to select the options. And you can add these as normal text layers themselves as individuals, or if you have a punchline and a setup, you can actually add these as different layers within the text box itself. So to do that, you add a new data from the data tab, and you can layer it as displayed on the screen in front of you. Now the next option we have is text charts. Now text charts is a new feature in 2.2, and what that allows you to do is present all your data on maybe your iOS device or the weather and things like that, presented in a text format. So you can have the title and the complete percentage, or you can have an actual chart, which is 8 segments, which displays the percentage as a visual. And they can also be presented as text strings. And if you go back to the text menu, there's a line separator. If you edit that, you can then put in the format you want the separation. So you can either have a new line, or you can have a comma, something like that. And then you can also have the option to have a bar chart, and this will display the visual data in a bar chart. Just another way you can display your data. Now the next one we're going to look at is countdown, and countdown I use a lot as well. It's just a general countdown to a specific date. So you can have days, or you can display it in hours, however you want the countdown to be. And I usually have things like weddings that are coming up and Easters or birthdays and things like that. So using two text layers would be a good idea, so you can display the text, custom text of what it is, and then next a countdown to that event. And you can also have your countdown in percentages if you wish to display the distance of percentage between now and that date. Next, you can display your cryptocurrency values. So if you do have stock in Bitcoin, you can choose Bitcoin and have that as a displayed value. But if you're the same as me, Bitcoin's a lot lower than it used to be, so it's quite a depressive value at this stage. So there's your option there anyway. Now moving on to one of the most popular options in Widgy, and that is date and time. I think Widgy is one of the most versatile applications you can use for date and time. And Widgy uses the built-in Swift data module to present date and time. So that's in HH or hours, MM in minutes, and SS in seconds, and obviously DD, MM, capital MM, and YYYY for the year. So however you want it to be displayed, there are many options built into Widgy, or you can use a custom format. And if you go to press the custom format and show documentation, you will see that there are the options displayed. So you just type in how you want it, and it will present in every single format you can think of. Widgy also does have a live timer. You can only use the live timer as an individual layer. You can't have additional layers, but it does work. If you go to your home screen and look at the widget, you do have the second countdown and the minutes. They do change live within the widget, which is fantastic. I have had widgets in the past from other applications, despite the fact they display the time, it doesn't load. And Widgy has a very good load rate for displaying the date and the time. You then have exchange rates, and exchange rates is a good way to display the current exchange rate based on the current financial climate. Next, you have your files, and you can load a text file from your device. And this is really good if you already have a large text file that you wish to display on Widgy. Now, the next one is health. There's many health options. You can choose daily health options, weekly, monthly, or last reading. I've only displayed my iPhone here. That's because it's not available on the iPad. But yeah, you can display anything. If you log health data, then anything that you can log on your iPhone, it can display here. My favorite preference would be to display the activity monitors, or the percentages from the activity monitors, and also things like the step count. And you can also do step count and things like average pace and distance from the pedometer section, which is outside the health section, as a different option. And Apple are always developing new data tools for health, so I'd imagine this will expand and expand as Apple bring out more products and operating systems. Next, we have live horoscopes. So each star sign is listed, and if you're into your horoscopes, you can have the daily affirmation displayed. Next, we have our JavaScript. Now, I've had quite a lot of requests to do a video on JavaScript, and I will do a separate video for this, but just to show you how it works, I'm going to copy and paste the async example for the async fetch. And as you can see on the screen, this will give you the full string, or every string from that fetch. But to give you a little bit more detail, I'm going to go to the script input, and I'm just going to copy and paste one that I've created in the past. This was just for fun, and it's a very simple script which basically gets the API Chuck Norris joke and replaces the Chuck Norris text and displays Pixels tech. So always make sure you press the tick in the top right corner. I've made the mistakes of pressing the cross before. It's not fun when you write a lot. And then you've got the art symbol, the palette symbol, and that just changes the background. And if you're on dark mode or light mode, they are different themes. Now, staying with JavaScript, I much prefer if I'm just going to use an API call. There's a fantastic feature called JSON Endpoint, and that basically gets the exact endpoint or string that you require from an API URL. So I'm going to paste in a URL that I use quite regularly, and that's the sportsdb.com. And I'm going to give them a free shout out. Why not? This is really good for basically calling sports results and sports fixtures. So you get the string that you require or the URL that you require, paste it in, and then it gives you all of the strings that are available. And that will just be a case of choosing the one you want. So if you want the home team, away team, the score, whatever that may be, and select that, press test, it will display the text for you, and then that will display exactly what you require. And this is really good if you want to create a proper string. You can use multiple layers within the text, which will then get different API calls, but you can add those into a string format for yourself. So it's just a case of playing around, especially if you're into APIs. Spend some time understanding what the URLs do, and it's you can do so much with Widgy with this feature. Now, moving on, I'm going to quick fire through some of these now because there's quite a lot to go through. So next we have location that can display your city or your county or your longitude, latitude, and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's really good. And I tend to use that on a couple of widgets myself. Then you have name days, and that's the celebration of a particular name dependent on your religion. Then you have your pedometer, which again, you can use your distance or your step count, but this is only available on iPhone. Then you have your day or time progress. So that can be day, hour, or month, year, however you want to see a progress of the current time. Then you have the random feature. This is either a set text or random text, or you could do a random number between certain parameters. And that's really useful if you want to use a dice roll or something. And then the next big feature that I really like is the RSS, or really simple syndication, which is a fantastic name. And that's a URL link. So you can display the title, the news article, the time, and the description. So all you need to do is paste the URL in the text box, and then it will display your most up-to-date RSS news from whatever you follow. And RSS links can be found in many, many places. Just Google RSS links and the topic you wish to follow. Now moving on, you then have your sun and moon. So that could be the day length, the next sunrise, the moon distance, whatever you want to display, sunset time, time till sunset, you name it. Then you have your system info. This is displayed in percentages or on or off. And if you want to change the display name where it is on or off, you can actually go back to the main menu, go to the message option and find the parameter you want to change, type in your name and then update. And I find myself using the tap action a lot with the system info displays, and then using a visual alongside this can really bring your widgets to life. And then you have your system memory, and that is things like your disk space and your CPU usage, things like that. And that includes also your system network with your Wi-Fi connectivity, your cell network information, and a lot of these can also be changed in the message menu. You then have your user info, and that's your name, and you can change that in settings. And then another big feature would be having the weather information. And Widgy has such a massive range of weather information. You can have daily, hourly, now, and you can also have that +1 to 24 hours or 7 days. And you can display things like temperature, precipitation, and everything up to wind speeds. You then have Widgy Debug, and that's just like the last reload, the memory use, or the latest review. And then finally, you have Apple Music. So that's just things like artists now playing, the song playing, the album playing, and play count and all of those kind of things. So if you do have an Apple Music subscription, this is really good. And I use this on a daily basis, especially along with tap actions. So that nearly brings this video to a close. It's been a very long video, so I hope you've learned a lot so far. Those that are still with us, I'm just going to explain the menu options for multiple text layers. So as you can see, if you've got multiple text layers within a text box, you can change the individual colors and fonts for each line, and you can also add separators such as a new line, or you can add like dashes and things like that in custom text. So it's really handy to be able to do that, and you can basically create your own strings of text just using one layer. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. There is a lot to squeeze in when it comes to text and Widgy. There's so much variety, and so I hope that I covered everything that you could possibly need to know. Like I said earlier, there will be additional videos on further JSON and JavaScript text. So don't worry, we will cover that at some point. So if you liked my video, please remember to like, subscribe, ring my bell so you can get caught up on every other addition to this series, and feed my ego, and I'll see you on the next one.